On today's episode of the franchise, September 3rd, 2023 NFL preview. We are in the final few days before the start of the NFL regular season, which means I've got to put out my predictions for each division, talk about each of these teams, give out my playoff and Super Bowl predictions for this season. So that way we can look back at the end of the year and see just how wrong I got everything. Because let me tell you, when we decided to look back at my MLB preview, there was a lot that was wrong. So there's going to be a lot wrong about this NFL prediction episode, but we're still going to do it anyways. We're 5 days away. 5 days away from 4 days away. 4 days away from NFL Week 1 regular season Lions Chiefs Thursday night football season opener. New podcast schedule though with the start of the NFL season. Episodes are going to be every Monday and every Friday. At some point, it's going to be released on Mondays and Fridays. No confirmed times. Mondays, we're going to recap the NFL weekend and the college football weekend. Fridays, we're going to preview college football and the NFL weekend. And then obviously whatever other news is in either baseball or basketball, we'll cover as well. But Fridays and Mondays, new episodes. Also, go follow the TikTok, Instagram, Twitter accounts. Going to be a lot more active on there during the NFL season. We're going to have tons of more content, hopefully available and put out on those platforms. Besides from just the main full-length podcast that you're watching or listening to now on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. But with all of that out of the way, let's get into today's episode. We're going to go through each of these divisions here, talk a little bit about these teams. I'm going to give ceilings, the floor and ceilings for each of these teams, and then where I have them finishing in. Starting the AFC West, I think the team that's going to win this division once again is the Kansas City Chiefs. I believe they are going on 8 division championships. This is the defending, reigning Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, led by Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, head coach Andy Reid. There's going to be a big question mark, and there is right now, surrounding this team, and that is Chris Jones and whether or not he's going to show up and whether or not they're going to agree to a deal with him, because Chris Jones is willing to sit out until the trade deadline. He's willing to sit out until week 8 of the season because he wants a new deal. He wants to be paid like one of the highest paid interior defensive linemen in the sport, as he should. He is one of the best interior defensive linemen in the National Football League. And look, the Chiefs are really going to miss him if he is not there for X amount of games this season. If he misses any time, the Chiefs are significantly it's a worse team. They're a worse football team without Chris Jones. And that's because their defense gets a whole lot worse. They don't have that guy up the middle getting pressure on the quarterback on the interior of that line. They're going to be missing. The camera's a little, why is it so blurry? There we go. The Chiefs are really going to miss Chris Jones if he is not there for any of the games this season. If he sits out 4, 5, 6, 8 games this season, they're going to really be impacted by the absence of Chris Jones. But even with that, even with the potential absence of Chris Jones for a good amount of the season, I still think this team is going to be the division champions, and I still think they're going to be in it, in terms of competing for a Super Bowl until the very end. I mean, as long as Patrick Mahomes is healthy and as long as Travis Kelce is on this team and still performing at an extremely high level, this team is going to be very, very good. And look, they have some tough opponents. Their first 4 games of the season are against teams that I would consider teams to be pretty solid. They open up against the Lions, then they play the Jaguars, and then they play the Bears. I think that's probably the most winnable game of these first 4, and then you go to the New York Jets. They also play the Vikings, Chargers twice, Dolphins, Eagles, Bills, and Bengals this season. So they have a tough slate of games this season for sure. But I think this team's ceiling, their ceiling is 15 wins. They could easily go 15-2 this season. Well, not easily, but their max this season is a 15-2 record. And I think the floor for this team is probably a 12-5. And they play tons of tough teams this season where I could see them losing to the Bills, the Bengals, maybe even the Chargers. The Dolphins could surprise some people. The Jets, the Lions on opening night could shock the world and beat the defending champions. And then I also think the Jacksonville Jaguars is a tough matchup for this Chiefs team, but they're still going to be in it. They're still going to win the division, despite what happens with Chris Jones, which, yes, is going to impact their success towards the end of the regular season and once you get into the playoffs. But talking about regular season football, the first 17 games for this Chiefs team, I think they go between 12-5 and 15-2 and win the AFC West once again. I think the Chargers finish in second place. Now, look, this is a Chargers team that the last time we saw them play, disregarding preseason, they blew a 28-point lead. They had one of the biggest playoff chokes in NFL history against the Jacksonville Jaguars in the wild card round of the postseason last year. They were up big on the Jaguars, and they just blew the game. They simply just choked the game away and lost to the Jaguars. The Chargers brought in Kellen Moore to be their offensive coordinator. They're bringing him over from the Dallas Cowboys after he was let go as the offensive coordinator there. He comes to the Chargers, and he's really going to air the ball out with Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert is going to probably throw the football more than he ever has in his entire career this season. With Kellen Moore's new offensive system, with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and the addition to that wide receiver room of Quentin Johnston from TCU, who they drafted in the first round, who's looked impressive throughout training camp and in the preseason. Not to mention Austin Eckler, a healthy offensive line, hopefully, as long as Rashawn Slater and some of those other guys on that O-line stay healthy. And then, look, they still have pieces on that defensive side of the football, Khalil Mack, J.C. Jackson, Joey Bosa, Derwin James, where they should be a good or at least improved defensive unit from last season. Look, they brought in tons of guys on the defensive side of the ball last year, and then their defense was just non-existent. I think this season, health, bringing in some more guys to help out on that defensive side, they should be a better team. They have too many talented players on that defense to not to perform as poorly as they did last season. So the floor for this team is probably 9 wins. They really could go 9-8 if worst comes to worst, they could go 9-8. They play the Dolphins, Cowboys, Chiefs twice, Jets, Lions, Ravens, Patriots, Bills. I mean, they could really stink and win at least 9 games. But I think the ceiling for this team is probably 14 wins. 14-3 record is probably their ceiling for this Chargers team. I think this is going to be a great team in the regular season. They're going to have a high-powering, explosive offense with tons of wide receivers, Austin Eckler and Justin Herbert leading the way. And I think Herbert is going to have a tremendous season. I think he's going to have more than 35 touchdowns, and he's probably going to hit that between 4,500 and 5,000 plus yards passing this season. The question for them is, in a crowded AFC, is a 12-5, 11-6, 13-3, or 13-4. Is that 13-4 is probably a good enough record to clinch a postseason spot, but is 12-5, is 11-6. Does that guarantee you a playoff spot in a crowded AFC? I mean, you'll find out in a little bit when I give out my playoff picks, but I think the Chiefs finished in second, ceiling 14 wins, floor 9 wins. I'm going to give them 12. The Broncos I have finishing in third place. New head coach Sean Payton brought him over from the Saints, traded for him from the New Orleans Saints. Second year of Russell Wilson on this team. And it's a really big question mark with this Broncos team. They have a great defense. That is not a question. Their defense is going to be top 5, top 10 in the entire league this season. Pat Surtain, top 3 corner in the NFL. This Broncos defense is no question going to be great. But the success of this team is solely reliant on Russell Wilson. And the way he performed last season, was it his fault? Was it Nathaniel Hackett's fault? I guess we'll find out. I mean, you can blame it on Hackett right now, but if Russell Wilson plays just like he did last season this year, his NFL career is going to be coming to an end a lot sooner than we would have thought. And his time as the Broncos quarterback is probably going to be over if he doesn't have a good season in 2023. But with Sean Payton, a new built offense, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, I think this team is going to be pretty solid. I really do. They're going to have a lot easier of a schedule than some of the other teams in the division. They play the Raiders obviously twice, Washington, the Bears, Texans, Patriots. It's still a tough schedule. I mean, you play the Bills, you play even the Green Bay Packers, the Chiefs, obviously, the Chargers, the Jets, the Dolphins. I think this team can, at most, at their peak, at their ceiling, win 9 games. I think that's the best this team can do this season. Maybe 10 games. The defense is going to be great. I'm not all that confident, though, in Russell Wilson. I think we've seen his best football. I really do. I think his best football is behind him, and I don't see him getting that much better this season from what he did last year to drastically improve this team from a 4-win football team to a playoff contender. So I think their ceiling is 9 or 10 wins, and their floor is going to be 4 wins. This team could implode and win 4 or 5 games this season. I think they're going to end up 8 and 9, third place in the division. And then that leaves the Raiders finishing in last. The Raiders have talent on this team. Josh Jacobs, leading rusher in the league last season. Davante Adams, still one of the best receivers in the NFL. They brought over Jacoby Myers, Hunter Renfrow. They still have Michael Mayer. They brought over in the NFL draft Austin Hooper at the tight end position as well. They drafted Tyree Wilson. They have Max Crosby on that defensive line as well. But the secondary is a mess. The offensive line is horrible. And then Jimmy Garoppolo, who they brought in the offseason to be their quarterback. I just don't have a whole lot of faith in him leading this team to a postseason. I know he's led teams in the past to the playoffs, and he's not particularly the greatest or the best quarterback in the league by any means. But those Niners teams that he took to NFC Championship games and to a Super Bowl were a lot more talented all around than this Raiders team. And I think by the trade deadline, Davante Adams will most likely be gone. Josh Jacobs, will he stay? Will he be gone? Who knows? I still think he's going to be great, but I think Davante Adams is finding his way out. Hunter Renfrow most likely could be on the move. And then I think at some point they're going to go with Aiden O'Connell, who they drafted in the 4th round of the draft, replacing Jimmy Garoppolo at some point this season. Because look, Jimmy G's contract, as long as I think he's passed a physical by now, but as long as he never passed a physical, it's not fully guaranteed. But then again, he played in the preseason, so I guess his contract is guaranteed. I just don't think this Raiders team is going to be good. I really don't. Josh McDaniels is not a good head coach. They don't have an O-line. They do not have a secondary at all, so they're going to be giving up tons of free yardage to the Chiefs, to the Chargers, and to all of the other teams that they play this season. And I think Davante Adams will be off this team halfway through the year. So I think this Raiders team, their ceiling is probably 5 wins, and their floor is what? 0-17, 1-16. I think they're going to be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes by time the NFL draft rolls around in 2024. All right, AFC East, we've done this division earlier in another separate video, but I have the Jets winning it, the Bills finishing in 2nd, I have the Dolphins finishing in 3rd, and the Patriots finishing in last place. I think the Jets go 13-4. I think the Bills also go 13-4. I think the Dolphins probably go 9-8, 10-7. And then the Patriots, I think they're going to finish about 5-12. They have a great defense. The Patriots have the best defense and the best offensive line, arguably, in this division. And I still think they're going to finish as the worst team in the AFC East. All right, the AFC South, a division we haven't talked about yet. I think the Jaguars finish in 1st place. I don't think this is a surprise really to anyone. This is a horrible division featuring two of the worst teams in the league in the Texans and the Colts, and a Titans team that went 8-9 last season. They have a completely new, revamped offensive line that is still young and still going to probably be pretty bad. And then they don't have tons of talent on the defensive side of the ball. The receiver room outside of DeAndre Hopkins is pretty bad, and Derrick Henry is aging. So at what point will we see Will Levis this season? That's a good question, because Ryan Tannehill in his final year, seemingly with this Titans team, he could ball out. But I think the Jaguars finish in first place. I think they probably go about 13-4. I think they can go 13-4. I really do. I think this Jaguars team is going to be really, really good. I think Trevor Lawrence is on an MVP caliber season. I think he's going to win the MVP this season. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to win the MVP, adding Calvin Ridley with Christian Kirk, with Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, Travis Etienne, and all of the guys that they have on that defensive side of the ball. This Jaguars team is going to be really, really good. I know some people are saying, are we really sure the Jaguars are going to be that great? Because they snuck into the playoffs last year. Yeah, they won a playoff game. Are we sure they're really that improved? Are we really sure they're that good? I think they are. I think because Trevor Lawrence is going to go on an MVP tear this season. I think he's going to win the MVP. I think he's going to lead this Jaguars team to another postseason berth and another division title. I have the Titans finishing in second, going 7-10. I still think this is a solid group. Derrick Henry is going to do his thing with DeAndre Hopkins, adding him to this receiver room that desperately lacked talent. And then Ryan Tannehill, Will Levis backing him up, waiting for his turn, for his opportunity to take over the quarterback reins for this team. I think 7-10 is realistic for them. Look, they play the Colts and the Texans twice. That's 4 games right there that are pretty much guaranteed wins. And then you just have to make up 3 wins for this team. They could easily split with Jacksonville in their own division. They could beat a team like the Atlanta Falcons, like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, like the Carolina Panthers, like the Dolphins. I think 7 wins is pretty attainable for this Titans team. I still think this is a solid group. I love Mike Vrabel as their head coach. He's one of the best coaches in the NFL, but look, they don't have enough talent. They're not going to win the division. They're not going to make the postseason. They're just going to be a solid 7-10, 8-9 average football team this season. The Colts finishing in third, I think they're going to go 3-14, maybe 4-13. I was a lot higher on this team before the Jonathan Taylor catastrophe situation, disaster situation unfolded. I thought this was the team that could finish like the Titans. I thought this team could win 5, 6, 7 games. But with Jonathan Taylor being out, requesting a trade, seeking a trade, and then now him being on the PUP list, Anthony Richardson is going to be missing an elite running back to help get his feet wet with in the NFL. Look, Anthony Richardson, I think he's going to be great. And that's part of the reason why I want this Colts team. And I think this Colts team could be super, super good this season, because I think Anthony Richardson is going to be amazing this season. I think he's going to be the best quarterback out of this entire draft class this season. I think Bryce Young's going to be very, very good as well. I think Anthony Richardson's going to do great. He has Michael Pittman, and you were banking on him having Jonathan Taylor as a security blanket to hand the ball off to help get him accustomed to being an NFL quarterback. But them missing Jonathan Taylor, him not going to be a part of this team seemingly this season, is really, really hurtful to this Colts team. Their defense still has great players on it. Shaq Leonard, DeForest Buckner, and then the offensive line still has Quentin Nelson. So this Colts team has good players in the right places. I just think, they're lacking a lot on that offensive side of the ball, especially with the absence of Jonathan Taylor. Seemingly this season, I think this Colts team goes 3-14, 4, maybe even 5 wins is probably the max for this team without Jonathan Taylor. And then I have the Texans finishing in last. I think they're going to go 2-15. Stroud's really going to struggle. He's really going to struggle behind an offensive line that, yes, has Laremy Tunsil, but the rest of it is not great. No true number 1 receiver. Dameon Pierce, he was great last year, but is he gonna be a bell cow workhorse running back? I'm not really too sure about that. Stroud is going to struggle. The defense is going to be improved. D'Amico Ryans, new head coach, a defensive-oriented guy, and Will Anderson Jr., the star defensive player on this team. I think he's going to have a great season. Ultimately, the Texans are still years away from truly competing. I think they can probably win 2 games this season in the AFC South. Finally, AFC North. I think the Bengals win the division once again. I think this AFC North is probably the best division in the NFL. I think each team in this division can win 9-10 games, and it wouldn't surprise me if they do that. The Bengals, the biggest question for them is going to be Joe Burrow's health and his calf. Is he going to play week 1? I guess we'll find out. We still have about a week. Joe Burrow still has about a week to prepare, recover, and get ready to see if he's going to be able to play week 1 against the Cleveland Browns. But even if he doesn't play week 1 or week 2, let's say he sits out 2-3 games of the first 2 or 3 games of the season, this Bengals team is still going to be in a prime position to win the division, and in my opinion, win 13 games because Burrow, his calf is getting better. He's recovering. He's improving. He has had no setbacks that we know of in his recovery process since his calf injury. So when he comes back, whether it is week 1, week 2, week 3, whenever he decides he's ready to go, this Bengals team is going to be right there with him, with Ja'Marr Chase, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, that defense, Joe Mixon. This Bengals team is going to win this division once again and compete for a Super Bowl title this season. This is one of the best teams in the entire National Football League, and I think they're going to win the division once again. I think the Steelers are going to shock a lot of people this year. I think they're going to win, or I think they're going to finish second place in this division. I have them going 12-5. Look, this defense is incredible. TJ Watt is one of the best defensive players in the entire league. I think he's going to go on a tear this season. I think he's going to be incredible this season. I mean, that's not really a wild thing to say that TJ Watt is going to be one of the best defensive players in the league this season. Joey Porter Jr., they brought him over in the draft. They have Minkah Fitzpatrick manning that safety position. And Minkah Fitzpatrick is one of the best safeties in the league. Don't forget about Minkah Fitzpatrick and how great he is for this Steelers team and in that Steelers secondary. The offensive side of the ball, they made tons of improvements. They added to that offensive line in the NFL draft. Grabbing Darnell Washington, I believe it was, from Tennessee in the NFL draft, jumping up and grabbing him. Kenny Pickett returning for his second season as the starter. I think he's really going to improve. I think Kenny Pickett, his dual threat ability is really going to shine in this Steelers offense. Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Allen Robinson, they brought over this offseason. And I think Najee Harris is going to have a bounce back year. Last year, he was really, really, really bad, really disappointing. But he was behind one of the worst offensive lines in the entire NFL last season. They're making improvements to that O-line. They're beefing it up. They're trying to get better, younger, faster, stronger. And I think Najee Harris is really going to improve. And I think Kenny Pickett's going to be really, really good this season. And this team's going to finish in second place, led by the defense. And that offense is going to be right there with them to help carry that weight. I have them going 12-5, finishing in second place. The Ravens, for me, finish in third place in this division. I have them also going 12-5. This is a Ravens team that made tons of additions in the offseason, most notably grabbing Odell Beckham Jr., but also drafting Zay Flowers at the wide receiver position in the first round of the draft, and then bringing a new offensive scheme to this Ravens offense for Lamar Jackson to work with here. I think Baltimore is going to be a great team this season. I think they're going to be a very, very dangerous team offensively. They still have a tremendous defense as well. And their schedule, we'll take a look here. They open up against the Houston Texans, and then they go against the Cincinnati Bengals and the Colts, Browns, Steelers, Titans, Lions, Cardinals, Seahawks, Browns, Bengals, Chargers, Rams, Jags, Niners, Dolphins, Steelers. They have a pretty balanced schedule. There's some really easy opponents in there. And then towards the back end of the season, they play some very tough teams. But Lamar Jackson is going to have an amazing season as long as he can stay healthy. Right, last year, he missed tons of time with injury. I think he played like 7-8 games last season, maybe a little bit more than that before he went out with injury, and then never saw the field again. But look, this Ravens team, without Lamar Jackson last season, almost won a playoff game against the Bengals. I think with him, they would probably win that playoff game against the Bengals because the Bengals were not playing good football in that game, if you don't remember. But with true talent in the wide receiver position, Zay Flowers, in my opinion, is the wide receiver one. I think he's going to play amazing this season. I don't think Odell Beckham Jr. is going to be as I don't think he's going to be used as much as you may think in this offense. He is a little bit older. He is coming off of a year of not playing football, but he's still going to be great. He's still going to be there for for Lamar Jackson. Not to forget, they have Mark Andrews, one of the best tight ends in the entire league. So Lamar Jackson has weapons. Not only does he have his legs to work with and to help, Lamar Jackson is one of the best running quarterbacks in the league. So not only does he have that weapon, but he also now has the weapons of Zay Flowers, of Odell, of Rashad Bateman, of Mark Andrews to really help distribute the football more, be more of a passing team, be more of a passing offense. I think this Ravens team is going to be amazing. I really do. Still think they're going to be a great team. I have them finishing 12-5, third place in the division. I think the Browns finish in fourth, but I don't think the Browns have a bad season by any means. I think they can probably go 10-7. I think this team's going to be really improved, and I wouldn't be surprised if they won the division, made the playoffs, or finished above any of the teams previously mentioned. It wouldn't surprise me because this team has tons of talent on it. And it starts with Deshaun Watson. The success of this Browns team is pretty much on the shoulders of Deshaun Watson. And can he return to his 2021 season where he could have won MVP in 2021. He was incredible for the Houston Texans in 2021. But since then, obviously missed a year plus not playing football. And then last year, after missing the first 13 games of the season, playing his first NFL football in over a year and a half, he wasn't that sharp. But full offseason, full training camp, full preseason with this Browns team, and now a full regular season with Cleveland, with Amari Cooper, with Nick Chubb, with Donovan Peoples-Jones, the wide receiver position, Myles Garrett on the defense. They brought in tons of guys in the offseason to help improve that defense as well. A unit that was bad last season, surprisingly bad last season, and they have tons of talent on that defense. They had tons of guys on that defense last year where it was very surprising just how bad they were last year. But they brought in tons of people in the offseason to hopefully improve this defense in 2023 and get to the promised land, get to the playoffs with Deshaun Watson. I think this Browns team is capable of doing it if all goes well, but sometimes that is too much to ask, saying if you have too many ifs, because there's ifs with every team. If Joe Burrow doesn't get hurt, if Kenny Pickett improves, if Lamar Jackson stays healthy. But for the Browns, it's if Deshaun Watson can return to 2021 form. That's 2 years ago. If Deshaun Watson can play like he did 2 years ago, if the defense can be as advertised, if the defense can play like it's supposed to play, if Nick Chubb can remain on the field and stay healthy, which he has done, if Amari Cooper is able to remain a number one wide receiver, and if this coaching staff is able to put this team in a position to succeed, at some point you have too many ifs. And look, this Browns team, they can write off all those ifs, and they could be a really, really good football team in 2023. And I would not be surprised if they do that. I would not. I think this Browns team is a sleeper team. Although I don't have them making the playoffs, I think they are a sleeper team. I think they win 10 games. Ultimately, though, the AFC is the most crowded conference. It is because realistically, in my opinion, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Every team in the AFC North. You have the Jaguars, you have the Jets, Bills, Dolphins, Chiefs, and Chargers. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You have 10 teams in the AFC, in my opinion, that are capable of making the playoffs this season, and you can only have 7. So you're talking about 3 teams that are not going to make the postseason out of the 10 I just mentioned. 3 of those teams won't make the playoffs, which is it's just the reality of the AFC, and the teams and the talent in the AFC is a lot better than in the NFC. So there's going to be teams that don't make the postseason that you could argue should, that you could argue will if they were in the NFC or if the AFC wasn't as crowded. But with the AFC having so many premier teams as it does, in my opinion, 10 potential playoff teams, it is going to be hard for a team that wins 10 games, maybe even 11 games, to make the postseason. So, which of these teams listed makes the AFC playoffs? Well, each of the 4 division winners does. I ranked them right here. So these are the 1 through 7 seeds. I think the Chiefs finish as the 1 seed. The 2 seed is, for me, is the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they're going to be that good. I think Trevor Lawrence is winning MVP. The number 3 is the Jets. I think the Jets are going to live up to the hype. I think they're going to be that good this season. Aaron Rodgers is going to ball out. Obviously, the biggest question for them is the offensive line, and can they protect Aaron Rodgers and buy him enough time to get his receivers open, which they will get open. He has a great group of wide receivers. And then 4th place, the 4 seed, Cincinnati Bengals, AFC North champs. So we have 3 spots to fill between the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Baltimore Ravens, the Cleveland Browns, the Buffalo Bills, Miami Dolphins, and the Los Angeles Chargers. 3 spots to fill all of those teams. The 5th seed for me is the Buffalo Bills. I have them finishing with the same record as Jets. So, I mean, either one technically can win the division. Either one could be the 5 seed. I think it's kind of up. I believe it's up to coin flip or similar head-to-head matchups against similar teams. Either way, the Bills for me are the 5 seed, not winning the division, still making the postseason. No surprise there. So 2 spots left. I think the Steelers are a playoff team. I think they are the 6th seed. I think they're going to make the playoffs. As mentioned, they're going to be really, really good. That defense is incredible. And Kenny Pickett is going to take a big leap this year. I think he's going to take a huge leap to the point where we start talking about Kenny Pickett as a borderline top 10, top 15 quarterback in the NFL. So I have 1 spot here to fill between the Chargers, the Ravens, the Browns, and the Dolphins. It is really tough. It is really, really tough to fill 1 spot between 4 teams because I could see each of these 4 teams remaining making the playoffs. I could see the Chargers with all of the talent they have, the Ravens, the Dolphins. You can eliminate the Browns because they're finishing in last place in their division, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Browns make the playoffs. But for me, the team that makes the playoffs, makes the 7th seed, makes that final AFC playoff spot is going to be the Baltimore Ravens. That defense is really, really good. And I think Lamar in this offense, with all of the weapons he has, is going to be incredible. I think Zay Flowers is going to be the best rookie wide receiver out of any rookie wide receiver in this draft. Better than Addison, better than Jackson Smith-Njigba, better than Quentin Johnston. I think Zay Flowers is going to be incredible this season. And I think the Baltimore Ravens make the final playoff spot. And, it's tough to say when you have a team like the Chargers and the Dolphins there. I think the Dolphins could be really good as well. But, is Tua going to stay healthy? Is he going to – if Tua gets one more concussion, his career is what? Probably over? I mean, at what point does Tua suffer too many injuries to where he can't play football anymore? And not saying that Tua is going to get a concussion this season or Tua is going to get hurt this season, but it is likely. I mean, it is not unlikely that Tua doesn't get hurt this season. So those are my AFC playoff teams. Now we're going to go over to the NFC and go through each of these divisions as well. So NFC North. A lot of people, for a lot of people, this is the Lions division, as they will say. This is the Lions division. The Lions are the favorites, seemingly, to win this division. But I'm going with the Green Bay Packers. I think the Green Bay Packers are going to win this division this year. And why do I say that? I think Jordan Love is going to be incredible. He looked so good in the preseason after sitting behind Aaron Rodgers for 3 years. I think he's finally going to prove, why he was a first-round pick, why he's the future of this team. And not to mention, this Packers team still has tons of talent. They have a good offensive line in front of him. He has a great group of young receiver, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson. And he has 2 running backs in the backfield that are incredible. A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones. Both of them are going to be great this season. And then on defense, there's a great defense behind on the other side of the ball. Lucas Van Ness, they drafted in the first round. They have Jair Alexander. They were a pretty good defensive unit last season. So the Packers, this is a team a lot of people are sleeping on. A lot of people are counting out since they lost Aaron Rodgers, and it's understandable, especially since we haven't seen much of Jordan Love in the NFL during the regular season. We literally have not seen much of Jordan Love. So am I going out on a limb here? Am I reaching to say the Packers are going to win the division? Yes, I am. But I think Jordan Love is going to be that guy. I think he's going to be that good. I think he's going to lead this Packers team to another division title and a playoff berth. So second place is the Lions. I think the Lions are going to be good, but I'm not completely convinced yet that they're going to be as good as a lot of people, or at least as the majority of NFL fans do believe. I still think this is a good team. I mean, by the way, I have the Packers going 11-5. I have the Lions also going 11-5. So you could argue they win the division here as well. Look, the Lions are either going to go, we'll say 10-6. The Lions go 10-6. Jared Goff is a good quarterback. He had a great season last year. He's going to be good again this year. Amon-Ra St. Brown is an incredible receiver. He's going to, by the end of the season, he's going to be a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be one of the most underrated players, most underrated rookies drafted. And he's going to have an incredible season and incredible impact on this team. Jameson Williams, once he comes back from suspension, hopefully he's able to help out this wide receiver room. And then they have a great offensive line protecting Jared Goff. This defense was very, very bad last season. They allowed some of the most points and yards per game last season. But they brought the focus for them in the offseason, particularly in free agency, was to improve this defense. And they really did that. They brought in tons of guys through the draft, through free agency to hopefully improve this defense. So look, I think this Lions team is going to be good. I don't think they win the division just because I think the Packers are going to be that good. I really do. That's why I have the Lions finishing in second place. I still have the Lions making the playoffs. So there we go. I don't think the Lions are going to miss the playoffs. I just don't have them winning the division. So third place, Minnesota Vikings. I have them going 9-8. For me, it was tough to pick this division in terms of these top 3 teams, because the Vikings are a good team as well. Kirk Cousins has been a consistently good quarterback throughout his career and throughout his time with the Minnesota Vikings. Justin Jefferson is the best receiver in the NFL. Jordan Addison, if he can be what he was at USC and potentially even better than that here in the NFL, the Vikings will have 2 of the best wide receivers in the league on the same roster. Alexander Mattison taking over as the full-time RB1, a career backup. How will he do handling this workload? I don't really think he's going to be as good as some people say. There's a group out there now. I don't know. I haven't heard from this group yet, because every other group I've heard of is saying the same thing about Alexander Mattison that I'm about to say. I don't think he's going to be that good because he's a career backup. Yeah, last year when Dalvin Cook was out, or when Dalvin Cook had off games, Mattison had these takeover games where he was very, very good. But you look at the rest of the sample size for him, he doesn't get many touches. He hasn't got many attempts. And he just hasn't been consistently as good as a guy like Dalvin Cook, who they cut. And I still think Dalvin Cook is a great player. And if they had Dalvin Cook on this team with Addison, with Justin Jefferson, with TJ Hawkinson, I think this Vikings team is really, really good. I still think they're going to be a good offense. But the question and the reason I don't have them making the playoffs and winning the division or finishing in second place is because of the defense. The defense was bad last season. The secondary, the D line, they lost. They got rid of tons of guys. And then a lot of their wins, I believe it was 13, or they won 13 games last season. I believe 12, or I forget the number. But a majority of those wins were by one score. And did they improve that much in the offseason through the draft, through free agency? That this defense is going to be better than it was last season, and that was not a good defense, and I don't think it is. And this Vikings offense is going to be elite. It is going to be one of the best offenses in the league, but I don't think the defense is going to be able to give their part and do their part to help carry this team to a postseason berth. I think they go 9-8. So they go 9-8. They miss the postseason, and Kirk Cousins, potentially is on his way out because he's a free agent after this season. And then fourth place is the Bears. I have them going 5-12. I'm not on the Justin Fields MVP train like some people are. I don't think he was. Yes, he had games where he showed flashes last season of being a great quarterback, and when, in terms of fantasy football, am I drafting Justin Fields? Yes, I am. The addition of DJ Moore is really going to help out Justin Fields passing, as well as Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney, Khalil Herbert. The offensive line, I know they drafted a guy at the O-line position with their first-round pick. But is Justin Fields going to be able to pass the football? Is he going to be able to be a passer, not just a rusher? Is he going to be a quarterback before a running back in terms of, is he going to look to throw before he decides to run? Obviously, design runs are a different case, but if there's not a play there, if he has to make a play instead of running, I mean, obviously it depends on the situation, but is he going to look to be a passer before a rusher? And then the defense still has tons of areas to improve. Some people are on this Bears train that they're going to win 9 games. I think they win 5. I think they do improve. Justin Fields will show improvement. I think he'll still be a better quarterback. But I don't think this team has enough. I don't think Fields is going to be that good to where this is a Bears team that wins 9-10 games and makes a postseason. I just don't see that happening for the Bears this year. I think next year, depending on how they perform this year and the moves they make in the offseason, next year could be their year, but this year is not the year for the Bears. NFC South. The Saints, I think, win the division. They go 12-5. The Saints roster is very, very nice. The defense is great. The offense with a very deep running back room. The running back depth for the New Orleans Saints, they have tons of RBs on this team. Alvin Kamara, obviously, but he's suspended for 3 games. And then you have Kendre Miller, Jamal Williams. So there's 3 RBs right there that are very, very impactful players. And then Chris Olave, Michael Thomas. Chris Olave is going to take such a big jump this season, and he was already great last year. He's going to take such a big jump where he's going to be in back half of top 10, top 15 receiver conversations by the end of the year. Can Michael Thomas stay healthy? Can he play a full season? I guess we'll find out. This offensive line is great. The defense, Cam Jordan is on this defense still. Marshawn Lattimore. I like this Saints team, and they're in a division that is pretty weak. I think the Panthers and Falcons are going to be some pretty solid teams as well. But look, this is a division last year where the Buccaneers won it, and I think they went 8-9 or 9-8. So the bar for winning this division is pretty low. Derek Carr is going to help improve this offense, improve this team. I think they easily win this division. Second place, I have the Carolina Panthers. I think they go 9-8. I think this, I think Bryce Young is going to be incredible this season. Now, obviously, if the offensive line for the Panthers plays like they did in the preseason, it's a different story. The Panthers will not be winning 9 games. But if they can improve, if Bryce Young can adjust quickly and learn quickly and progress quickly and show signs of improvement and just not turn over the football and not make careless mistakes, Bryce Young and this Panthers team is going to be very good. I think they could win 9 games. Look, I think they're going to start off the season pretty slow. I honestly think they're going to start off the season pretty bad. I think they're going to lose to the Falcons and the Saints and the Seahawks, the Vikings, Lions, Dolphins. I think they start out 0 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think they start out probably 0 and 6. Maybe they win 1 or 2 games in there, but they could start out 0 and 6. But then they play the Texans, the Colts, the Bears. Those are 3 wins right there. They probably lose to the Cowboys, but they could beat the Titans. They could beat Tampa. They could beat New Orleans again. They can also beat the Falcons again, and then the Packers, Jags, and Buccaneers again. So they have a very easy or a lot easier second half of their schedule. Once you get past those first 6 games, the schedule for the Panthers gets a whole lot easier. And that's when I think Bryce Young is really going to go through tons of adjustments, tons of learning through the first 5-6 games of his NFL career. But once he goes through, and then he has that Houston Texans game, I think this is where he completely turns the season around and the Panthers go on a tear. I think they would probably win 9 games this season. The Falcons, I'm finishing 3rd place, going 8 and 9. I know they're a pretty popular pick to win the division. They have tons of skill position talent. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, Cordell Patterson. But Desmond Ridder just hasn't played enough football for us to know like how good he's going to be to help this team, because they have a good offensive line. They have great skill positions players, but if the quarterback just can't be good, then this team's not going anywhere. And we just haven't seen enough of Desmond Ridder. I know he played 4 games last season, but that's still a very small sample size to know how good this team is going to be this season. The defense is good. I think they could finish 9 and 8, maybe 10 wins, but I'm giving them 8 wins right here. I think the quarterback play of Desmond Ridder is going to be probably the biggest weakness for this team. And then the Buccaneers finishing last in this division. Maybe 4 wins for this team. Baker Mayfield, I think he's going to get overtaken by Kyle Trask at some point. I kind of think with how bad they're going to be, you kind of have to see what you have in Kyle Trask at some point, which wouldn't surprise me. And they have a tough schedule. Vikings, Eagles, Bears, Saints, Lions, Falcons twice, Bills, Titans, Niners, Colts, Panthers twice, Packers, Jaguars, and then obviously the Saints twice. That's a very tough schedule. And yeah, they have a team. They have great players: Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Rachaad White. But they are missing. They're going to be missing Ryan Jensen for the whole season once again. So the O-line is going to take another big hit. Can Tristan Wirfs stay healthy? And then you look at the defense. Yeah, they have tons of guys on that defense that were there for the Super Bowl run, where they were one of the best defenses in the league. But they play a tough schedule. They don't have good quarterback play. I think this team probably, I'm going to give them 4 or 5 wins this season. NFC East, we've already done. Eagles, I think, win the division. Cowboys, Giants, and then Commanders. And then finally, we have the NFC West. I have the Seahawks winning the division. I think they go 12 and 5. I really, 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 really like this Seahawks team and what they did in the offseason through the draft, in particular, bringing in Jackson Smith and Jigba and bringing in Devon Witherspoon to help out that secondary and the defense. This offense is going to be good. I think the biggest question for me for this team is going to be, can Geno Smith replicate his season again? For every other quarterback in the league, pretty much, it's not a question of whether they can repeat the season they had again. Like, can Kirk Cousins do what he did last year? Probably. Is Mahomes going to do what he did last year? Yeah, probably. But a guy like Geno Smith, who's been a career backup, a career inconsistent quarterback, who last year had a great season, a tremendous season last year for Geno Smith, passing for 4,000 yards and throwing for 30 touchdowns. But you look at the rest of his career with the Jets, his first season, he had 3,000 yards, 12 touchdowns, 21 picks. His second year, 2,000 yards, 13 touchdowns, 13 picks. And then he played 1 game, 2 games, 2, 5, 1, 4. And then last year played all 17 games. Can Geno Smith replicate the season he did last year? It's just I guess we'll find out. It's a yes or a no. It is really up for debate whether Geno Smith can have the season he did last year or close to it or better than that in 2023. But he has the pieces on this team to help him do that. Zach Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker, obviously the three-headed receiving core of Lockett, Metcalf, and Jackson Smith-Njigba, Noah Fant at tight end, and then the defense. This is a nice defensive group. I really like this defense. Devin Witherspoon, Bobby Wagner returning from the Rams, Jamal Adams, Quandre Diggs, Reek Woolen. I think this Seahawks team is going to win the division. They have a interesting schedule. I got to pull it up. I just exited out of it. Rams, Lions, Panthers, Giants, Bengals, Cardinals, Browns, Ravens, Commanders, Rams, obviously Niners, Rams, and Cardinals twice, Cowboys, Eagles, Titans, Steelers. It is a tough schedule. Like there's some very tough opponents in there. Obviously the Niners, I think they probably split with them, but if the Niners win both those divisional games, there's no way the Seahawks won the division. You obviously are probably going to, I think, guaranteed wins, but from the Rams and from the Cardinals. Maybe not so much the Rams because the Rams always tend to play the Seahawks pretty tough and pretty physical. The Cardinals are guaranteed wins, but then you play the Eagles, you play the Steelers, Cowboys, the Ravens, the Browns, the Bengals, the Lions, and the Panthers. I mean, those are some tough games. I think the Panthers, that's week 3. That's probably an easy win, but some of these other games are pretty tough. I do give them the benefit of the doubt. I do think they are the better team in most of these matchups this season. I think they win the division and go in 12-5. The Niners, I think they go 11-6, finish in second place this season in this division. This is still a good team. I don't think they're regular season wise are going to be as good as they were last season. Brock Purdy is the starting quarterback. Sam Darnold is backing him up. Obviously, McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell, Brandon Ayuk. I think Brandon Ayuk is the wide receiver 1 on this team. I think he's going to have an incredible, a big time jump this season where he's going to have a breakout year. Tebow Samuel, can he stay healthy? George Kittle, and then the offensive line is obviously one of the better offensive line units in the NFL. And then defensively, great defense. Eric Armstead, Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave, they brought over this offseason. Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner, one of the best linebackers in the entire league. Javarius Ward. This is going to be a great football team. They are. But in terms of the regular season and looking at their schedule, the Steelers, week 1, opening it up. I wouldn't be surprised if they lose that game. I wouldn't. Giants, Cowboys, that could be a loss. The Browns, Vikings, Bengals, Jaguars, the Seahawks twice, the Eagles, the Seahawks, the Ravens, the Commanders. They have a tough schedule. I don't think they're going to be bad. I think they're going to have some struggles throughout the season, like any other team. But I do think they finish in second place and go 11-6. Final 2 teams, the Rams, they're going to be horrible. Besides Aaron Donald, can you name one player on that defense? Probably not. Matthew Stafford is apparently having issues connecting with his younger teammates. So I think this Rams team, I think they win maybe 3 or 4 games, and then the Cardinals finish in last place. I would be surprised if they win 1 game this season because Kyler Murray is not going to play. If you think Kyler Murray is playing this season, you are wrong because the Cardinals the Cardinals organization is trying to tank. Obviously, the players on the field are trying to win every single game that they play, but the organization is trying to lose. You get rid of Colt McCoy, you bring in Joshua Dobbs, and then the only other quarterback you have on roster is a guy you drafted this year in the middle rounds. And Kyler Murray, his contract is only guaranteed if he plays and gets injured. So if he stays on IR or he doesn't come back this season, you don't have to guarantee as much future money as you do if he plays. If he plays, you have to guarantee a lot more money than if he sits this season and misses the year, and then you try to trade him in the offseason. I don't think Kyler Murray is playing. I think they're tanking for Caleb Williams. They're going to draft Caleb Williams. They have 2 first-round picks for a reason. They're focusing on the future. They're focusing on a future without Kyler Murray. He will not play for this team this season. So yeah, the Cardinals are bound to win at least one game this season. I would be surprised if they win one game, because whoever they beat just lost to the worst team in football. I think they go 0-17, 1-16 this season. All right, so my NFC playoff teams. The 1 seed is the Eagles. 2 seed, I have the Seahawks. 3 seed, Saints. And then the 4 seed is the Packers. And I have the Cowboys as my 5, the Niners as my 6, and the Lions as my 7th seed. So let's go through the NFL playoffs. Round 1, the wild card round. Starting in the AFC, I have the 7th seeded Ravens taking on the 2 seeded Jaguars. I have the Jaguars winning that game at home. Steelers versus Jets in New York. I have the Jets winning that game as well. I think the Jets are bound for greatness this season. And then the 5-seeded Buffalo Bills versus the Cincinnati Bengals, a rematch of last year, the divisional round of last year, where the Bengals beat the Bills on the road. I think the Bengals win this game once again, and the Bills are going to be looking at themselves after this loss in the postseason and saying, we have lost 3 times in a row. We have not made a Super Bowl appearance. What do we need to do to improve this team and get over the hump? On the NFC side, I have the Seahawks and the Lions in Seattle. I have the Seahawks winning. And then I have the Niners taking on the Saints in New Orleans. Give me the 49ers. And Cowboys versus the Packers in Lambeau Field. Very tough matchup. I have the Green Bay Packers winning that game at home in Lambeau. Second round, Bengals versus the Chiefs. I have the Cincinnati Bengals beating the Chiefs in the postseason once again. And then the 3-seeded Jets taking on the 2-seeded Jags in Jacksonville. Give me the New York Jets to go to the AFC Championship. Niners, Eagles, rematch of last year's NFC Championship game. And once again, I think the Eagles win this game. Brock Purdy, full healthy Niners team, on paper at least. At this point, I still think the Eagles have a better roster and will win and go to their 2nd straight NFC Championship game. And then the 4-seeded Packers going to Seattle to play the 2-seeded Seattle Seahawks. And I'm going to take the Seahawks to win this game. I think the Packers are going to be great. They win a playoff game. But the Seahawks roster is just way, way too talented in the skill position, on the defense, and the running game. And then Geno Smith, I think they're going to win at home and go to the NFC Championship. So championship games, AFC Championship, Bengals taking on the Jets in New York, and the Seahawks taking on the Eagles in Philly. I have the Bengals beating the Jets in the AFC Championship, going to the Super Bowl, and the Eagles beating the Seahawks and going to their 2nd straight Super Bowl. So, Super Bowl matchup in Las Vegas between the Bengals and the Eagles. And my pick for this year's Super Bowl champion is the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they have the best roster in the NFL. Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, the best offensive line, the best defense, one of the best defensive groups in the entire league. They got younger, they got better in the draft. I think the Eagles win the Super Bowl this season, beating the Bengals in Las Vegas. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I think Trevor Lawrence wins MVP this season. Jamar Chase is my offensive player of the year. Michael Parsons, my defensive player of the year. My offensive rookie of the year is Jahmyr Gibbs. My defensive rookie of the year from the Seahawks is Devon Witherspoon. So those are that is my NFL prediction and preview for this season, going through each of the divisions, going through the playoffs, and my Super Bowl pick being the Philadelphia Eagles over the Cincinnati Bengals in this year's Super Bowl. So there we go. That is going to do it for this episode. Hour-long NFL preview episode here. As mentioned, we're only 4 days away from the game 1 of the NFL season. So next episode of the podcast will be on Friday. We're going to recap NFL opening night between the Lions and the Chiefs, and then preview and pick the rest of the Week 1 games that will be taking place next weekend on Sunday, as well as college football. So next episode will be Friday. Thank you so much for tuning in to the episode. Make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Follow the accounts in the description. Check there for the other platforms that you can find more content on. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on Friday with another episode.